Well, I think the biggest reason I became a prosecutor was I wanted, as a lawyer, to do a job that I thought where had the opportunity to make a difference.
As a prosecutor, I'm able to use my life's experiences and try and make things better for people who are going through something similar.
Being a prosecutor allows me to do something that is challenging and fast-paced and exciting, but it's also meaningful, so that was important to me.
For me, when I was 15, my sister was very into running. She was training for her first marathon. She had been out running one morning before work. She was killed while running, and that was something that really motivated me to want to fight for other people and fight for other victims of crimes.
I want people to see our criminal justice system, and in particular the prosecutor's office, that we do hold people accountable for the actions they choose to take, but in doing so we do that with fairness.
It's our job to make sure that justice is done, and sometimes that means trying to convicting somebody, going to trial, somebody going to prison. In other cases that means maybe giving somebody a chance.
Getting justice for the victims who can't protect themselves.
The best part about being a prosecutor are the days where you can really bring home justice for victims and hold people accountable for the crimes that they did.
To me, the best part of being a prosecutor, and it's also one of the big reasons I became a prosecutor, is to be there for someone at one of the worst points in their life.
I review, I'd say, almost every sexual assault case, whether it's adults or children that come through our office, and all the child abuse cases as well. And that can be really trying because you see all the things that people do to each other, the ways that people victimize other people, especially the ones who can't protect themselves.
You have families and victims and victims' families and witnesses who don't want to be here. So they come into your office and they see you as part of the problem, in the sense that you're a reminder to them of whatever bad thing has happened to them.
A lot of times there are things that happen behind the scenes of a case that are outside of our control. So people don't want to cooperate, they don't want to show up to court, etc. So you can plan and you can be as prepared as possible, but there's always going to be times where things are out of your hands. So that's frustrating.
Some of the more difficult things is the fact that we do see survivors or victims of crime at their worst. And me being a passionate and caring person, you would like to put that person back to the position they were in prior to the crime happening. You would like to make their life go back to the way it was before that traumatic event. Realistically, you can't do that.
For me, the most challenging thing is whenever we do encounter opposing counsel who make this a game. It's a game to them, it's about winning, and that's something that I think is really sad and unfortunate in some ways, because we're dealing with people's lives and what we do in court has an impact on people, and that's what it should be about, as others, not ourselves as attorneys.
The case that has impacted me the most is the death penalty case I had. And one of the victims in that case was a victim of domestic violence, and her name was Erica. And that case, I've never forgotten about her. I keep her picture in my drawer for the days when it's hard, the days when you feel like you're not making a difference and that, things just aren't getting any better. And I look at it and it reminds me of why I do what I do.
They've all collectively affected me at 20 years into the job. I can't say as a prosecutor, well, this is the worst case I've ever seen, or this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Because if you're the victim of a homicide, it is the worst offense. It doesn't matter how it happened, how random it was. It could be a child who was tortured and beaten to death, or it could be a young man who's walking down the street with his friends and gets shot in the head. To that family and to that victim, it's the worst.
I was prepping for a criminal trial. We were just a day before the trial itself. It was for sexual battery. And at that point in time, the defendant decided that they wanted to change their plea from not guilty to guilty. So the defendant changed their plea. I went and got on the phone with the victim, and I let the victim know that the defendant decided to plead guilty. And it was at that moment that I could hear the victim just sobbing on the phone. Relief, validation, vindication. It was just very heartwarming that there were no words spoken. It was just sobbing, but it meant everything.
I don't approach cases with the thought of, well, how long can I get in prison for this person? You know, my goal is to help people, help victims, help their families, you know, hopefully help community. And, you know, sometimes that means helping the defendant.
I think the biggest misconception is that prosecutors are just out to put everybody in jail and just convict everybody. And ultimately, you know, our job is to seek justice, whether that means a trial or you know, conviction, working towards that, or finding evidence that shows that the person didn't do it. Because I've had cases where I've gotten more information and evidence while we are investigating the case, and I've determined that the person did not do what they were charged with.
My sense is that some people see prosecutors as having an agenda, as being very political, as being power hungry at times, or potentially, you know, abusing that power. We do have a lot of power, but having done this for, you know, 20 some years, you know, I can say that 99% of prosecutors are in this for the right reason. They're in it because they care about right and wrong. They care about justice. They care about victims.
We're in a conspiracy. We're conspiring, whether it be with the judges or maybe a defense attorney or something. We're conspiring to get a guilty verdict. When I was in the child protection unit, we're conspiring with children's services to steal children away, and we're getting a quota for it. No. No. I did what I did in the child protection unit because that was the right thing to do. Children should not be suffering through some of the situations that they've been put in,